However, what do you think is the reason behind him actually wanting to do this affair? Because his life isn't going to massively change by taking newspapers to courts, is it?
Well, no, but I think for him it's about accountability. I mean, he said that all he wants is accountability and an apology from the newspapers. I think he also kind of wants justification for what happened to his mum, Princess Diana. We know that she had illegal means used to gather stories about her. Phone hacking was used against her. And at the time, everybody was like, oh, she's mad. She's not telling the truth. She's just being paranoid. But actually, it was proven afterwards and after her death, actually, that she was right. And so he's long been saying something's not right about the way these stories have been gathered. He wants to justify why he said all that. He wants to be right, essentially. But he does want that accountability and he wants an apology. It's about holding these big newspaper groups to account.
Yeah, he says...
Is Prince Harry not justified in court action? Simply for the sake of justice? How about the end game just being justice and accountability? Why is it that people understand that the common man might come upon evidence of guilt of a crime committed against them 20 years ago, and all would agree they should get their justice finally? No one would ask, what's your end game? So a prince is not allowed to get justice even when his family have previously taken out legal action on the newspapers before. Anyone would think Prince Harry is being singled out and dehumanized while expecting him to just take all kinds of wrongs against him by bad people, institutions and empires. The double standard is glaring. We celebrate when ordinary citizens pursue justice decades after a crime, yet when Harry does the same, suddenly there must be some ulterior motive, some hidden agenda, some personal vendetta. Perhaps the real question isn't what Harry's endgame is, but why so many are so invested in denying him the same right to justice that we'd afford anyone else who'd been wronged. Justice has no expiration date. The notion that justice should somehow fade with time is fundamentally flawed. Justice delayed is not justice denied, and accountability for wrongdoing doesn't come with the statute of limitations in the moral sense. When everyday citizens discover evidence of crimes committed against them decades ago, society rallies behind their right to pursue legal redress, understanding that the passage of time doesn't erase the harm or nullify the need for accountability. Yet when Prince Harry exercises this same fundamental right, a right that belongs to every human being, regardless of title or status, suddenly there's an interrogation of motives, a questioning of endgames, as if seeking justice for proven wrongs is somehow suspicious when you happen to be born into royalty. He deserves precisely the same access to the courts, the same opportunity to hold wrongdoers accountable, and the same respect for his pursuit of justice as any other person who's been victimized. No more, certainly, but absolutely no less. The endgame obsession. A double standard exposed. What strikes me most about the media coverage of Prince Harry's legal battles is this relentless, almost obsessive questioning. But what's his? You hear it from commentators, presenters, royal reporters, this perpetual demand to know what Harry's motivation is in suing newspapers, as if seeking justice through the courts is somehow insufficient, somehow suspect. And doesn't that tell you everything? The very premise of the question reveals a staggering bias, a double standard so glaring it's almost comical. Think about it. Would anyone ever ask an ordinary citizen who's just discovered evidence of a crime committed against them 2 decades ago, "Yes, but what's your here?" Of course not. We'd universally agree they deserve their day in court, that justice delayed shouldn't mean justice denied. But apparently a prince, This particular prince isn't afforded that same basic human right to legal recourse without having his motives interrogated, dissected, and deemed insufficiently pure. It's as though the concept of accountability, of simply wanting wrongs made right, is too straightforward an explanation to be believed. Justice as its own end game. Why Prince Harry's court action needs no further justification. The ongoing nature of phone hacking. While the specific instances of phone hacking may be historical, the broader culture of media misconduct that enabled such violations persists to this day. The argument that it happened so long ago, or they're not doing it anymore, fundamentally misunderstands the purpose of accountability. Holding institutions to account for past actions isn't merely about punishment. It's about establishing precedent and deterring future violations. Legal action serves as a powerful deterrent to continued unethical practices, sending an unmistakable message that there's no statute of limitations on institutional wrongdoing and that those who abuse their power will eventually face consequences. When we allow past misconduct to go unchallenged simply because time has passed, we effectively grant permission for similar abuses to continue under different guises, whether that's through new technologies or simply more sophisticated methods of intrusion. Justice delayed shouldn't mean justice abandoned, and the notion that someone should forfeit their right to accountability because the violation wasn't prosecuted immediately is a dangerous precedent that protects powerful institutions at the expense of individuals who were harmed. The royal family's established legal tradition. The royal family has previously taken legal action against newspapers. This isn't some unprecedented tantrum or rogue mission. Prince Harry's lawsuits follow an established pattern of protecting family interests, a tradition the institution itself has long employed when its members have been wronged. His actions are consistent with how the institution has historically defended itself against media overreach and unlawful practices. So why is it that when Harry does exactly what the royal family has done before, suddenly there's pearl-clutching and endless questions about his motives? Anyone would think the same action becomes somehow illegitimate simply because the one doing it. The precedent exists. The institution set it. Harry's following it. But apparently, when it's him, the rules change and the questions multiply. The double standard applied to Prince Harry's pursuit of justice. Anyone would think Prince Harry is being singled out and dehumanized while expecting him to just take all kinds of wrongs against him by bad people, institutions and empires. The fundamental issue here is that Harry is being held to an entirely different standard than any ordinary citizen would be in identical legal circumstances. When a regular person discovers evidence of crimes committed against them decades ago, society rallies behind their right to seek redress. No one questions their motivations or demands to know their end game before they're allowed to proceed. Yet, when Prince Harry does precisely the same thing, suddenly there's this bizarre expectation that he should simply absorb the violations, shrug off the illegality, and move on without recourse. The constant media scrutiny of his motivations, the endless questioning of why he's doing this, what he hopes to achieve, whether it's really worth it, reflects a broader societal bias that treats him not as a human being entitled to justice, but as some sort of public property who forfeited his basic rights the moment he was born into royalty. It's a dehumanizing double standard that essentially argues, you're a prince, so you should just accept being wronged. Justice needs no ulterior motive. Justice and accountability should be sufficient motivation for legal action. Why is this such a difficult concept to grasp when the plaintiff happens to be Prince Harry? Exposing institutional wrongdoing serves the public interest, not just the individuals. And when those institutions have operated with impunity for decades, somebody needs to stand up and say enough. Holding powerful institutions responsible protects vulnerable individuals who don't have the platform, resources, or frankly, the sheer bloody-mindedness to take on empires like News Corp or Associated Newspapers. When we question Harry's endgame, as if seeking justice is some sort of suspicious activity requiring hidden agendas, we're essentially saying that accountability itself isn't a valid goal, that there must be something else, something shadowy, something we can critique him for. But here's the thing. If your neighbour discovered evidence that someone had broken into their home 20 years ago, would you sit there asking, "But what's your endgame, though?" No, you'd support their right to justice. The fact that Harry is a prince shouldn't disqualify him from that same basic human right to hold wrongdoers accountable. The power dynamics at play newspapers and media empires wield significant power over public perception, shaping narratives and influencing how millions of people think about individuals, events, and institutions. These are not small operations. They are massive entities with the resources, reach, and infrastructure to dominate public discourse. When such powerful institutions engage in misconduct, legal action is one of the few mechanisms available to everyday people, and yes, even princes, to challenge their behavior and demand accountability. Without the ability to pursue justice through the courts, how exactly are individuals supposed to hold these powerful entities accountable? Are we meant to just accept that media empires can break the law, invade privacy, and destroy lives without consequence simply because they're too big or too influential? The suggestion that someone shouldn't pursue legal action because it won't change anything essentially grants immunity to institutional wrongdoing. If individuals, regardless of their status, cannot challenge these powerful forces when they have evidence of criminality, then we're accepting a world where might makes right, and where empires operate above the law. Justice should not be reserved for the common man. Alone access to justice is a cornerstone of democratic society, a principle that applies regardless of wealth, status, or birth. No person should be expected to accept systematic wrongdoing against them simply because time has passed, or because seeking accountability might be deemed inconvenient for powerful institutions. Prince Harry's pursuit of legal remedies is a legitimate exercise of his rights, the same rights afforded to any citizen who discovers evidence of crimes committed against them, whether that discovery comes immediately or decades later. When a common person uncovers proof of unlawful acts from 20 years ago, society rightly supports their quest for justice. Yet when a prince does the same, suddenly questions emerge about endgames and motivations, as though his royal status somehow disqualifies him from the fundamental protections that underpin our legal system. This double standard reveals an uncomfortable truth, that some expect Harry to be dehumanized, to accept wrongs perpetrated against him by bad actors and powerful empires, to quietly absorb systematic abuses that would outrage us if inflicted upon anyone else.